Rizdal. Hollywood gets all the attention when you start talking about entertainment production being shut down. I mean, we've done a bunch of those stories ourselves, right? But entertainment and content and production and editing and writing are a global industry, or industries, I suppose, and there is more to them than just Hollywood. From the BBC, Vivian Nunes reports on animation in Africa, where demand has never been higher.
You might think that creating an animated series would involve years of study at an expensive university, but that's just not the case, according to Nick Wilson, founder of the African Animation Network in Johannesburg.
There's some incredible innovative work coming out of Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, Egypt, Uganda, South Africa, Mozambique, Burkina Faso. The majority of this talent is self-taught.
So how do people go about teaching themselves animation skills?
YouTube is a wealth of information. Ridwan Mashoud, who won Cartoon Network Africa's Creative Lab competition, is self-taught. And all over the continent, we hear these stories.
In fact, it turns out Nigerian Ridwan Shades Mashoud turned a bad school experience where bullies emptied a rubbish bin onto him into an award-winning cartoon about Garbage Boy and his sidekick, Trash Can.
I was bullied and called names, and through those names I decided to create Garbage Boy.
He's hoping his latest cartoon, In My Hood, will be commissioned and made into a series.
Lagos, the city of hope, city of opportunities. And here we have...
My advice for other young and hopeful animators is to learn to dream. And when you dream big. Also, never stop practicing.
Some of the biggest clients for African animators come from the NGO sector. They see animation as an effective means of expressing complex concepts in multiple languages.
My name is Chris Morgan. I'm a filmmaker and series producer of My Better World.
Welcome to My Better World. Chris Morgan's project is an educational series comprised of animation and real-life documentary. The series was nominated for this year's Annecy International Animation Film Festival.
We'd be making those films for Discovery Channel, who are now Impact Ed, for primarily teenagers in sub-Saharan Africa. And it was to teach them life skills, stuff like being confident, taking responsibility, maybe even negotiation for if you were being pressured into sort of female genital mutilation, you know, really hard-hitting stuff. We have an incredibly young and talented population. So in South Africa, where I'm based, for example, Pixar and a lot of the other big studios actually do a lot of their animation work here. What's even more exciting than that now is telling our own stories and the growth of sort of digital streaming platforms who are commissioning original African content, and specifically animation is terribly exciting.
But while more and more quality work is being produced, there's an obstacle to getting African content on screens. It's cheaper for broadcasters to import ready-made shows from abroad than fund original content. The African Animation Network hopes to overcome that problem by launching its own TV network. Nick Wilson again.
The next phase for us is to invite those investments, because we're kind of on that precipice of being maybe a couple of sectors across the continent to a potentially thriving and sustainable industry.
So it looks like we're going to be hearing a lot more from animators in Africa in the years to come. I'm the BBC's Vivian Nunes for Marketplace.
When this economy stopped back in March and April, some started working from home, some couldn't and had to keep going in. But there is another category too, people whose work didn't really work at home, but whose work also couldn't be done with other people nearby. Today's installment of our series, My Economy, is going to make that make sense.
My name is Ayana Haviv. I live in Los Angeles, California, and I'm a professional singer. Singing is a super spreading activity, and so when the pandemic hit, really quickly it became apparent that we wouldn't be able to sing again with other people probably until there's a vaccine. And I was looking at, no work. Everything was basically shut down. There was, I collected unemployment, process of that, people started realizing, okay, well, this is going to be the way it is for a long time. We're not going to be in the same room making music together anytime soon. So let's start recording at home. So at first I got some solo things for some TV shows, and then I got a couple choirs that each of us recorded our part at home and then put it together to sound like a choir at the end. And it's not nearly as emotionally satisfying or musically rewarding, but it sounds kind of surprisingly good for us all recording at home. I actually had to put together a choir myself of 32 singers, all recording their own part, and I was the one responsible for making sure that all the singing was broadcast quality, which was very challenging, but also rewarding. And in the end, we came up with something that we could really be proud of. Before COVID, in the before times, home recording was probably the thing I liked to do the least. I'm a very social person, like most singers, and the whole process of musical back and forth, you can't get that when you're just by yourself in your closet. And it was never as rewarding before, but now I'm just so grateful that I have any musical work at all. Singers, we know that we're not going to have a stable income, that it goes up and down. We sacrifice so much for this because singing feeds our soul. During COVID, everybody is binging TV and movies. Everyone listens to music all the time, but you never hear about us as workers. I hope so much that our organizations that employ us make it through this pandemic so that when we come out the other side, everyone will have somewhere to go listen to live music, to go to the theater. Because if they don't, then it's a huge loss, not just in terms of the art, but in terms of our jobs, our livelihood.
Ayana Haviv here in Los Angeles, a professional singer improvising in this pandemic economy. Tell us about your economy, would you? You do it online at marketplace.org/myeconomy. This final note on the way out today, I don't know what it means, if anything, but it will give you something to ponder as you watch or listen to returns tonight. It's from the New York Times. They took their poll database from fieldwork they have done over the past couple of months and broke down supporters of President Trump and former Vice President Biden by first name. Yes, random, but come on, we could all use a little random right now, yeah? Anyway, of the 10 most common male first names, Richards go for Trump, 64-36. In fact, popularly named men break almost entirely for Trump. Christophers and Josephs are 50-50. That's as good as Biden gets. Of women, Karens go Biden, 60-40.
Marketplace is supported by X-Chair Office Chair, dynamic variable lumbar support, and 10 ergonomic features for maximum support and comfort at xchair.com or 8444-XChair. And by TD Ameritrade, for a trading platform that fits you. Thinkorswim offers customizable screeners, charting, and forecasts. Learn more at tdameritrade.com/thinkorswim. And by C3.ai. C3.ai software enables organizations to use artificial intelligence at enterprise scale, solving previously unsolvable business problems. Learn more at C3.ai.
Holy cow, look at the time we gotta go. Our digital and on-demand team includes Ufuk Mamatolu, Olga Oxman, Erica Phillips, Brian Ronahan, and Tony Wagner as well. Satar Nieves is our executive director of On Demand. I'm Kyle Brisdell. We will see you tomorrow, everybody. This is APN.
And this is WAMU 88.5. Thanks for listening to Marketplace with us. I'm Jonathan Wilson. All Things Considered is coming up next, of course, and we've got national and regional headlines in a couple of minutes, as well as a detailed look at the forecast from the Capital Weather Gang in about 5.
American voters will finally get to choose who they want in the White House.
I'm running as a proud Democrat.
but I will govern as an American president.
Get out and vote. The red wave is coming.
And an anxious nation awaits the results of critical contests around the country. Join us tonight for special live coverage of Election Night 2020, plus more updates on tomorrow's morning edition from NPR News.
Listen tonight starting at 7 here on WAMU 88.5.
Support for WAMU comes from Drexel University. Drexel University produces visionary leaders equipped to anticipate and address the challenges of the changing world. More at drexel.edu/ambition can't wait. Shepherd Mullen, a global law firm with 900 lawyers serving the needs of government contractors, private equity funds, corporations, the healthcare industry, and digital media companies in DC and beyond. Shepherd Mullen, we put clients first.
It's All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Mary Louise Kelly. Ahead, states delivered massive unemployment benefits during the pandemic. What happens if they overpaid and want the money back?
It's just jaw drop. Literally, I think my mouth opened up pretty wide. My eyes got a little watery. I might have made kind of a shrieking sound.
First News.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Louise Schiavone. Under the shadow of a pandemic and an economy struggling under its weight, as well as heightened racial tensions, Americans have turned out to vote in record numbers. Almost 102 million Americans cast their votes before today. Both candidates agree that the swing states now could tell the story. On his way home from a final outing in Delaware, Democrat Joe Biden told reporters,
I can't think of an election in the recent past where so many states are up for grabs. The idea of a play in Texas, Georgia, North Carolina, Florida. I mean, come on.
President Trump stopped at campaign headquarters near Washington earlier today. He sounded optimistic.
Everybody should come together, and I think success brings us together. We're going to have a tremendous success.
He predicted big victories in Texas and Arizona and said results from Florida and Pennsylvania would be key. Of tremendous concern to many voters, the coronavirus pandemic, its impact on families and paychecks. NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben has the latest data from the AP's VoteCast election polling.
Nearly 4 in 10 say they or someone in their household has lost work or income because of the pandemic. And 1 in 5 say they have had a close family member or friend die of COVID-19. In addition, Americans are not pleased with how the pandemic response is going. Over half say they feel the pandemic is not at all under control. Right now, cases are spiking again in many states, including key swing states like Wisconsin. An overwhelming majority said COVID played a major role in their votes. The AP VoteCast data do not yet show how that played out in terms of their choices. However, half of respondents said they consider Biden more capable of handling the pandemic, compared to about a third who said they believe Trump is. Danielle Kurtzleben, NPR News.
The Dow was up 554. This is NPR.
This is WAMU Regional News. Good evening, I'm Jonathan Wilson. Virginia polls close in about 30 minutes. WAMU's Daniela Cheslow reports there are signs turnout today is going to be modest.
Fairfax County saw long lines on many of the 45 days of early voting. Today, the county says besides lines that formed before polls opened, voters have been able to walk right in and out. As of 3 p.m. today, about 155,000 people voted in person. Together with the early and absentee votes cast, the county elections director says it's looking like Fairfax County will have roughly the same turnout as it had 4 years ago. 7 p.m. is the final deadline in Virginia to get into a voting line or drop off a ballot. It's 8 p.m. in D.C. and Maryland. For WAMU, I'm Daniela Cheslow.
Time now for a closer look at the weather forecast. For that, let's turn to Washington Post meteorologist Jason Samenow.
After chilly weather since the weekend, we turn the corner today as sunshine boosted temperatures to near normal levels for early November. Now, for the next week, we're treated to above normal temperatures and abundant sunshine. Clear skies and still on the cold side tonight. Lows range from the mid-30s in our colder spots to the low 40s downtown. Both tomorrow and Thursday, we see beautiful sunshine, light winds, and afternoon highs in the mid-60s. Friday through the weekend, we keep the sunshine and edge warmer. Highs each day are near 70 degrees without a drop of rain. Into early next week, it's more of the same. We probably don't see a chance of rain and cooler weather until the second half of next week. For the Capital Weather Gang, I'm Jason Salmon.
Thanks for that forecast, Jason. Right now, 55 degrees, clear skies in Washington, 54 degrees in Laurel, and 54 degrees in McLean as well. For more news, go to WAMU.org.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from the Candida Fund, supporting individual dignity and sustainable communities through investments in transformative leaders and ideas. Learn more at KENDEDAFund.org. From the Walton Family Foundation, working to solve social and environmental problems to improve lives today and benefit future generations. More information at waltonfamilyfoundation.org. And from Americans for the Arts.
This is All Things Considered from NPR News. I'm Mary Louise Kelly. About 2/3 of voters say the country is heading in the wrong direction, and the coronavirus is a top issue, if not the top issue for many. Also, over half of the electorate says the economy is not doing well. That is from some early data coming in from an extensive survey from the Associated Press in conjunction with National Opinion Research Center at the University of Chicago. Here to talk about it is NPR's Juana Summers. She covers demographics and politics. Hey, Juana.
Hey there.
So give us just a little background on this survey. Who's being polled? What's the time frame?
Yeah, so AP's VoteCast is a survey of the U.S. electorate that's conducted over several days before Election Day, and it'll continue until the polls close this evening. It gives us a look at who's voting as well as who isn't, and it also tells us a lot about what matters to them.
Well, and who is voting? What can we learn from this year's election?
Yes, we knew coming into this day that more than 100 million people voted ahead of Election Day, and the AP's VoteCast data shows that 71% of voters voted early or absentee, while 29% voted on Election Day. And one big thing that I've been taking a look at is who showed up this year that did not show up 4 years ago. 15% of voters surveyed said they did not vote 4 years ago. We've known for a while now that this has been a pretty stable race, and the data bears that out, too. About 3/4 of voters say they've known all along who they were going to support in this election.
All right, let's put the details about who's going to vote and who's not to the side just for a second, and just dive in on the issues, what voters are saying is important to them, how they feel about the state of the nation, because there's some fascinating headlines here.
There are. It is clear from the survey that President Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden are facing a very dissatisfied electorate. Roughly 6 in 10 voters said the country is headed in the wrong direction. We also know that the president's leadership loomed large for voters. Nearly 2/3 of voters said that their vote was about the president, whether it was for him or against him.
It also sounds like the coronavirus, understandably, is looming really large in people's minds.
It absolutely is. More than half of voters, 53%, say that the coronavirus pandemic is not at all under control. Roughly 4 in 10 say this was the top issue facing this country. We're also learning a lot more about how voters view the president's handling of this pandemic. 58% of voters say they disapprove of how the president has handled the coronavirus pandemic. And the last thing that I find interesting is this does give us a snapshot on how the pandemic has personally impacted people in this country. About 4 in 10 people say their household lost a job or income due to the pandemic, and about 2 in 10 said they had a close friend or family member die. About half said they'd missed a major event due to the coronavirus pandemic, so certainly hurting Americans in a lot of different ways there.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you about something specific to this election. The president's repeated claims without evidence that this election would be rigged, could be rigged. Did the survey ask about that, about how confident voters are in the integrity of the election?
It did, and voters are pretty measured. About a quarter of voters said that they are very confident that the votes in this election will be counted accurately. About 4 in 10 voters were somewhat confident, and about 3 in 10 said they were not confident that there would be an accurate vote count this year.
One other issue to ask about before I let you go, the national reckoning that we have witnessed over race and justice. What do voters say about that issue and how that might factor into their vote?
Yeah, this one's really interesting. About half of voters say that racism is a very serious problem in society. Roughly 3 in 10 say it's somewhat serious. About 2 in 10 say that it is not a serious problem. About a third of voters said that police in this country are too tough on crime, and a smaller share say that police are not tough enough. But here's what's interesting. Compared to the pandemic and the economy, which loom quite large for voters, relatively few voters, about 1 in 10, say that racism is the country's most important issue, and an even fewer share called law enforcement the most important issue facing this nation.
And Pierre's Juana Summers reporting. Thank you, Juana.
Thank you.
What makes a democracy work is that the losing side accepts the legitimacy of an election. Polls this year have shown that partisans on both sides may have trouble accepting the outcome. Lucy Perkins of member station WESA in Pittsburgh reports on how that is playing out with a group of voters in Pennsylvania.
This is the first presidential election Savannah Henry will be old enough to vote in. She's a junior at the University of Pittsburgh and tried to vote absentee in the 2018 midterms. But she never got her ballot, so she's voting in person on campus this fall.
Like, if they're sending me to campus and I'm, like, back enrolled in school and I'm expected to go to class and to do all of these different things, I can go vote.
Savannah's a progressive Democrat from Erie. She's troubled by Trump's false claims of mail-in voting fraud and by his acknowledgement that low black voter turnout helped him win in 2016.
This country is no stranger to, like, making it harder for certain populations to vote, and I'm a college student, I'm black. If they see that on paper, like, I feel like it's easier for them to, like, throw it out.
To be clear, attributes like race and age are not listed on ballots. Savannah still thinks voting by mail is a good idea, and a lot of Pennsylvanians seem to agree. Millions of people applied to vote by mail this fall, and the vast majority of them are Democrats. That imbalance worries Republican Ed Swiklinski.
While I don't think that people are going to cast votes illegitimately, I think the system was set up so that more Democrats would vote.
Ed's in his 40s and lives in the suburbs south of Pittsburgh. He plans to vote for President Trump in person on Election Day because while he generally trusts voting by mail, he says there are too many